Welcome to the Immigrant Entrepreneurs Show, where our mission is to inspire, impact, and influence other immigrant entrepreneurs to follow their dreams and create the future they want. My guest today is the author of 14 books with 7 international bestsellers and six times Amazon #1 on business and personal development. He is also a musician with 13 albums to his name. He is the chairman and founder of the Circle of Excellence. Welcome to the show, Mike Handcock.
Hi, Ali, and hello to all of the people listening. It's great to be here.
Pleasure having you on, Mike. Where are you currently?
Currently in Cape Town, South Africa, which is quite cold and chilly. Been raining for the last week, and just got home from a extended trip to Europe where we were working in a number of different countries and the Middle East, actually, Europe and the Middle East.
Love it. Mike, is South Africa where home is for you?
It is these days. Yeah, we spend about 3 months a year here, Ali. The rest of the time, we could be anywhere. Like last year, we were in 21 countries. I think we've been to 8 so far this year.
That's amazing. So now you got our attention and obviously our audience's attention. Please tell us what you do and what makes you travel the world.
Well, the Circle of Excellence Group is a group of companies that focus in personal and professional development of people. We do things from licensing intellectual property to schools, universities, coaches, consultants, and speakers. We run large and small scale personal development events and business development events around the world. And we have a series of coaches and consultants that work with us that go out and help people to build a business and do better in life. Essentially, though, all of that comes under our mantra, which is we help conscious leaders to play a bigger game. So a conscious leader may interest your audience because people go, oh, conscious leader, what's that? Is that somebody who's going to save the whales or something like that? Well, it may be, but the best description of that was in Forbes magazine a few years ago that said a conscious leader is not somebody necessarily trying to save the planet, but a conscious leader is somebody who's prepared to do the deep inner work inside themselves so that they can turn up as the best and most authentic version of themselves. So I guess we're helping truly authentic people that are in business to do much better than they ever believed possible through a range of modalities, and some of those people will go on and save the planet.
That's awesome. And when I hear to you, I also get a feel that you do work around spirituality, and oftentimes we have this, let's call it, the limiting belief that spirituality and entrepreneurship doesn't always go hand in hand. So what's your opinion on that?
It has to 100% go hand in hand. In fact, sometimes when I'm being interviewed like this, Ali, the hosts ask me, so why do businesses fail? And my answer is because the entrepreneur doesn't know who they are. So they know what their skill set is, but they haven't done the work inside themselves so that they truly understand them. So here's a very practical example of that. You sit there as an entrepreneur and you think, oh, I've got to make some more phone calls. I've got to get some more business. But then you don't pick up the phone. So the next day you go, gee, life's tough. I've got to make some phone calls. I've got to make some more business. But you don't pick up the phone. Instead of just understanding that you're never going to pick up the phone. It's not inside you to do that. So you have to find another way. So, we are just spirits having a human experience in this life. So every single one of us has to walk with a foot in the spiritual world and a foot in the material world. And we just walk along with both of them. If we've only got our foot in one of those worlds, then we're hopping through life. So if we're totally materially focused, we're hopping. And also, there's a lot of people who are very only spiritually focused and they're struggling in life as well. So It's the combination that makes us powerful, and it helps us understand our customers, our staff, our stakeholders, and what our business does that serves the greater good of humanity as well.
Now you definitely got my attention. How do I know? Let's say I'm not let's say I am, in this case, I am an entrepreneur. And if an entrepreneur wants to find out, am I tapping into my true potential and into my true existing or not? How does one find this out?
Well, I think firstly, there's some questions that each and every one of us can ask ourselves. And that is, are we focused on being a human being or a human doing? So a human being takes time in their day to just be. When was the last time you, as an entrepreneur, looked outside and appreciated the trees and the sky and the clouds during your day? Or did you just sit there and think, oh, I've got to get this marketing campaign out? When was the last time we walked on the beach or in the forest or in the mountains or in the desert and experienced what it was like to have the ground under our feet? When was it the last time that we, as an entrepreneur, inquired about others and how they truly are? And it's so fascinating, even that question. I was talking to somebody recently and they said, you're the only person this year who's actually asked me how I truly am. Not by saying, hi, how are you? But by saying, hi, how are you? What's going on in your life? How's things? How's your year going? What are your struggles? What are your successes? So if you're not doing those things in your own world as an entrepreneur, then you need to have a good look at yourself and say, actually, I'm not living a spiritual existence. I'm being a human doing. And I'm in busyness, not in business. So most of us spend most of our day doing all the wrong things right. We're focusing on our blog, on our next post, on sending out an invoice, and we're good at all those things. And boy, have we got a good website, but we're not connecting with people. And I just wrote it. We have a magazine. It's down here somewhere, I think, called Lead Magazine. There's a copy of the recent one that had Sadhguru on the cover. Mm-hmm. This is our magazine. I just wrote my article for the new magazine, in fact, and my article is about RI versus AI. So we all know what AI is, artificial intelligence, but what about relational intelligence? Because AI is a passing fad. It will be with us, just like, I'm not saying it's going to disappear, but it's just going to become part of us, just like the calculator was once something brand new. And just like before that, the wheel was brand new. Now it's just part of us. It's just part of what we do. But the thing that's consistent throughout history is relationships. And that's what we have to work on. So coming back to your question, how do you know? If you're not smelling the flowers once in a while, if you're just doing all the time, if you're not relationally focused, then you probably need to just put some checkpoints in place and recalibrate your existence.
And how does one balance between, doing all the internal, let's call it internal work in terms of, the spiritual work and existing within, but also doing the technical work that we all know is part of business these days even more, and balancing these two and not neglecting one without the other?
Very good question. So I have a smart comment, or it's a smart question back that I often ask audiences around the world, Ali. And that is, if the internet, AI, and online marketing is so good, why are we all working so much harder than our parents did, and we're pretty much in the same situation? So you don't have to answer that. I'm not expecting you to, but it's a question for the listeners. But effectively, with that question poised, then I would say that if we just took the time first thing in our day, not to get out of bed, have a shower and jump straight on our laptop, but to get out of bed, to do 10 minutes of meditation or prayer, whatever your faith is, to do a little bit of physical exercise, loosen up the body, again, 10 minutes, to make your cup of coffee, and instead of going to your laptop, to go to your balcony or to your patio and to sit there with your journal and just watch the universe and to think. And if you just did that, you'd probably add 30 to 40 minutes into your day at the start, and you'd solve most of your issues. And here's another tip, I think, for people, and this is a really good tip. It's deeply, deeply spiritual, but it's something that my wife, Landi, and I do every day. We never miss it. And I learnt this from the Ashwa Indians of Ecuador. So they're a tribe in Ecuador that still is very non-interactive with the rest of the world. So they're living fairly primitively. And I had the opportunity many, many years ago to spend time with them. And the first thing that they do in the morning is when they get up in the morning, the village comes together, which is only a very small group of families, around the fire, and they share their dreams. The dreams that they had that night. And they use those dreams to guide them in their day-to-day existence. That's exactly what my wife and I do every single day of our lives. The minute we wake up and we say good morning and I give her a kiss, she says to me or I say to her, "So what did you dream?" Mm. And it doesn't matter how crazy that dream is or who was in it or whatever, there's always a meaning. Dreams aren't irrelevant. Dreams are the greatest gift from the spiritual world. The spiritual world doesn't communicate in our low vibration languages that we have here on this planet. It talks to us in so many higher vibration methods, signs and symbols. Here's an example of that one. I remember being in Turkey with an entrepreneur once, and there was a group of us for a few days, and every day he was just being buzzed by a bee. A bee just came and buzzed him, bzzz, all around him. Kept shooing the bee, and he goes, these bees are driving me crazy. And we're all like, there's no bees. He goes, but this bee is just driving me crazy. Anyway, it got to day 3, and he asked me, can I help him with his business? So I sat down with him an hour, and he was rebranding his business. And he showed me 4 or 5 different concepts for his brand, and I started laughing. And he said, what are you laughing at? I said, you've got a bee brand. That's the one you should have. That's why the bee's buzzing around you. He said, no, that can't be right. I said, well, you can go with the other ones, but I'm going with the bee brand. Yellow and black. That's your colors. His business is doing very well. His brand's really good. So God, the universe, whatever you believe in, gives us signs and symbols. Dreams is one of the most exceptional ones that we can learn from.
So, Mike, why do we dream what we dream?
Our dreams are influenced by what's going on in our life at the moment, what our guides and soul group want to instill in us, what some of the people who have passed over that love us want us to know or perhaps consider, and also some of the imprints that we have in our own life and our DNA memory that we haven't dealt with yet. And so it's important to be able to discern maybe what a dream is about. For instance, if you dream about a house, you're not dreaming about a house. The house is you. So if that house is bright and new and shiny and looks great, you're in pretty good shape. If that house is old and dilapidated and boards are falling off it, you've got some work to do. If you're dreaming about the bedroom in the house, that's all about your most intimate self. This is about something that's so intimate to you, that dream. There's a message for your intimate self. If you're dreaming about plumbing, guess what? You've got to wash some stuff away. You've got to get rid of some stuff. So there's different tools and techniques in that. But your dreams are a composite of those things.
Interesting. How do I mean, selfishly interested in this. How does one learn about, what meaning dreams have?
Look, there's a lot of really good books on it, but the simplest way for most of us, and I find this one to be even better than some of the other ways, is firstly, you want to try and keep a dream journal, because many people who do dream, and some people say they don't dream, the only people who don't dream scientifically are psychopaths. So you're either a psychopath or you've turned your ability to dream off, and
Mm,
therefore you've got to will it back on because they're the greatest gift of to you. So the minute you wake up, try and write down some notes of what was in your dream. Try and remember those. That way you can go back to it later, and you can also create a journal, because sometimes dreams happen in patterns over a month or 2 months or something like that, and they reoccur, and it may not be the same dream, but it's the same feeling and things like that. Then I would suggest you simply go pick up your WhatsApp on your phone, go to the new meta on WhatsApp and type in, what is a dream about an elephant who eats a frog about? And see what comes up and see what resonates with you. Dream meanings, there's a lot of books on dream meanings. There's a lot of Google on dream meanings. But actually the new WhatsApp AI is really good with some of the latest stuff. And I find it searches really well. I literally typed into it, or actually my wife did when it first appeared on her phone, who is Mike Handcock? And it was actually 100% up to date. Even had
interesting.
photos of recent podcasts that I did and things like that. So it's pretty good. Much better than some of the other AIs. Much better than ChatGPT at the moment. That's got to catch up.
Okay. Interesting. I'll give it a shot after this interview. So I was thinking but when you immediately asked this question, I had an answer in my head in regards to technology and how computers have improved our life. I have an answer which I would like to share with you. I believe because of the technology and the computers and everything that is actually improving our lives, now we all have access to these tools, right? So if we all have access to more or less the same resources, that means also we're competing, or the competition goes higher, right? So if the competition goes higher, what I'm putting into has to be also on a higher level in terms of to get a better output. So that would be my answer why to the question, why are we working that much if computer and technology has basically improved our life? I would love to hear your opinion on that.
Well, I think what you're saying, what I hear in what you're saying, Ali, is that we have so much more range to so much more tools than we've ever had before. But in that comes A, great responsibility, but B, we're now in the world of fake news and trolling and all of this sort of stuff that's also being created. So, Isaac Newton said it was one of his laws of the universe, and it's a great law. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So the more people are going online, the more people are also going offline. The more people are using AI, the more people are running away from AI. So each of us, it's just a tool. It's no different than having a calculator or a slide rule or a notebook. What we're doing now are just tools. I think the message I want to put across is, don't lose your humanity just because of the tools. A lot of the entrepreneurs that come to our various events and that around the world are getting up to working 100 hours a week. It used to be 80. And so, we try, and most weeks of the year we are able to, probably about 45 weeks of the year, we're able to work 4 days a week. So it's about having your own priorities and then deciding which tool you're going to use, what system you're going to learn, where you're going to go deep, and what you're simply going to forget about or outsource to somebody who's far smarter than you. And I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about, Ali, which may bring your question to a close. back in 2015, which is 9 years ago now, back in 2015, we were in 40 countries that year. I did the math. It meant we spent 6.5 weeks inside an aeroplane. That's a lot of time. How do you run all your businesses when you're spending 6.5 weeks inside a plane? By the way, there was no Wi-Fi back then inside planes. And by the way, I don't use it now. Interrupts my movie time or my sleep time. But I actually put an app on my laptop at the stage called Rescue Time. It's a nice app. It's still around. I've still got it on my laptop. It's very useful. And I thought, where is my time actually going? I'm this entrepreneur who needs to save time. I've got all these business interests. I'm traveling the world. I don't have time. Where's my time going? Back then, I realized, and I still remember the percentage, I was spending 46% of my time online doing design work. I'm designing a brochure. I'm putting a post up on Facebook. I am doing a banner for an event that we're doing, etc., etc., etc. Why? Because I wanted it done quickly. So I was averaging at the time around 4 hours a day on my laptop. 2 of those hours a day, about 46%, were done in design. So we just instantly went out and hired a designer. Suddenly I got 2 hours a day back, 10 hours a week. That's a whole day. So hence I don't work Fridays. And I don't do design work, very rarely. Still enjoy it from time to time, but certainly doesn't take up 2 hours of my day. So I think we've got to get this in balance. It's like everybody says, oh, you've got to get on the latest social media. I remember when Periscope came out, everybody wanted to be on Periscope. And then there was what was that sort of podcast one? I can't even remember what that was called. And everybody got on that for a while. And in the end, you've got to just choose one or two things and go deep into them and learn them, forget the rest, and you'll probably be a much better entrepreneur because of it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know what's also interesting to me? I have seen a couple of very successful entrepreneurs. Some of them had huge exits, like I'm talking a couple of $100 million exits. You know what they're doing? And some other are still building their businesses in the digital space. And you know what they're doing? They're building digital detox retreats, which is very interesting to me.
That's really, well, I think that says a lot about what's going on. I think that says a lot. And I won't say I digitally detox, but generally around the 10th to the 15th of December, I close my laptop and emails and I don't respond to anything until about the 15th of January. And I've done that for more than 10 years. It's like I still read books on my phone and I don't answer any client messages. My WhatsApp's not on. I still use my phone as a camera. So I'm not totally digitally detoxed, but I'm certainly not in business.
Interesting. You know, one thing that when I was doing some research about you and preparing for this interview, there are so many things that you do, as a musician, chairman and founder of the Circle of Excellence, all the other things that you're running. And then I get to listen to you talking about when you get up, you do your morning routine and everything. How do you balance all these things?
That's probably the number one question that you could ask me for somebody who has entrepreneurs as an audience. So well done. And the answer is going to be a little interesting and maybe a little long for the audience, but I think it's really worth going into. It goes back to that 2015 time again. And Lundy, my wife, said to me at the time, she said, "Why do you use a to-do list?" I said, "Because I learnt to, right? And it's how I keep track of everything." She said, "So on an average day, how many things do you tick off on the to-do list?" I said, 3 or 4. She said, "But you've got about a dozen things on there." I said, "Right." She said, "How do you feel about being a failure every day, 5 days a week, 45 weeks a year?" I went, "Jeepers, she's right." So we started to come up, is there an alternative to this busyness to do type lifestyle, which we've been taught, all of us? And so we came up with our answer. We call it the 4 Gs. And The first G is get. So what do you want to get? Now, for most people listening to this podcast, they're going to want either more money or more time. So I'll focus on more money. Second one is, what do you want to groom? Well, the thing you want to groom generally is relationships. So that's the second thing. Then, what do you want to grow? That's the third one, your business. So, and the last one is, what's your gold strategy where you like your 100 million exit or whatever it is, right? What's that gold strategy? So now I want to put that in perspective. So what we did and what we encourage all of the listeners to do is just get out a bunch of Post-it notes and just write down all the things you do during a day. So at the moment, I'm doing a podcast. So podcast. Before this, I was having a sales meeting. So sales meeting. Before that, I was doing a little bit of research. So research. Before that, I was having another sales meeting. So during a week, you might come up with sales meetings, networking, research, training, podcasts that you're doing, writing your blog posts, doing marketing. You can only imagine the types of things that would come up. Then you take those Post-it notes and you put them under the 4 Gs. So what goes under the get column? And I said I was going to focus on money. It was only money or time. So what comes under the get column? What is going to get me money today? Not talking to you, I wouldn't think, Harley. That might be a surprise if somebody bought from me today because I'm talking to you, unless it's you. So what's going to get me money today is sales meetings. Okay, what else? Actually, there's not much else. All right, let's go to the second G. So what do I want to groom? I want to groom relationships. Relationships with my clients, so that's called customer service. Relationships with new potential clients, that might be called networking. Relationships with new potential clients, that might be called podcasting. Although I'd put that in another area. But maybe relationships with my family, maybe relationships with my staff. Okay, so that's in the groom area. What do I want to grow? That's the third area. I want to grow my business. Podcasting, social media, marketing, invoicing clients, research and development. Building my website out, doing a funnel. I can think of 1,000 things under that. And then the last one is, what's my gold ideas? Okay, maybe it's writing another book. You can see them on the bookshelf behind me. Or maybe it's doing a film, or maybe I've got an idea for a $100 million exit. So now that everything's in those categories, here's the answer to your question. We spend 80% of our week doing just gets and just grooms. 80% of our week. Basically, Monday to Thursday, we are either pitching new clients or developing new relationships. All the stuff in our grow column, which is most of the things that most of the entrepreneurs spend 80% of their time doing, we outsource. So we either have somebody who works for us do it, or we have a contractor do it. Design work, marketing funnels, marketing is outsourced. So this is relationship building, being on a podcast. I'm building a relationship with you, and I'm building a relationship with a whole bunch of people who've probably never heard of me before. And 20% of them will love me, 20% of them will hate me, and the other 60% will be indifferent. That's okay. The 20% who love me may start following us and looking at what we're doing, or at least go to our website, circleofexcellence.biz, and fill in the assessment there and see where they're at in their lives. So entrepreneurs as a whole, though, will be sitting there on a Monday morning, writing a blog post, sitting there on a Tuesday morning, doing some research. This is prime selling time. You should be in front of your prospects. You should be, if you're not in front of your prospects, you should be developing relationships, customer service, asking for referrals, those type of things. So that's how come I can do so much in the same time that everyone else has.
Very interesting. Thank you for that answer.
Long one.
Do
Sorry
you
about
think,
that.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. Do you think that is also the reason why businesses fail? Or what's the reason, in your opinion, that businesses fails? Obviously, you get to work with lots of entrepreneurs from all different kind of industries.
There's only only three reasons that businesses fail. And they're not the reasons, you can ask a room of people, why do businesses fail? And they'll say, there's not enough capital. The business plan isn't good enough, all of that sort of stuff. I don't find that to be the case at all. Number one reason for me is that the entrepreneur doesn't know who they are. So what they do is they think that they can do a lot of things that they're probably not going to do or do well. So therefore, they sort of kid themselves. I'm going to start a business that is focused on rocket science, for instance. What do I know about rocket science? Have I had any experience in it? Do I even know what the market is, et cetera, et cetera? So they don't know who they are. So that would be the first thing. So they do something that really doesn't work for them. Second, they spend all of their time in that business doing the wrong things right. So they have the most beautiful website. They have the greatest business cards, but nobody ever sees them. No traffic's ever going to the website. One of my friends who I've known since I was 11 years old has an amazingly successful business. It's a family business. It's him and his wife and 4 or 5 employees. They turn over about $30 million a year. They fly first class around the world. He's had that business since 2008. 2 years ago, he got a website. He doesn't have to do any online marketing. He doesn't have any. He's now on LinkedIn, but he's not active. It's like somebody in his business set him up a LinkedIn profile. He just does all the right things right all the time. He just talks to people about his product all the time. So that's the second thing. And the third thing, third reason I think entrepreneurs fail is because they just simply don't do the activity required. And the activity I'm talking about, how many people are looking at your business? How many people are in your lead funnel? How many people are you talking to on a day-to-day basis? It's that. It's not rocket science. It's just that. And if you're in an online business, it's how much traffic have you got and how many conversions are you getting?
That makes sense. So when you say they don't know who they are, can you explain more about that? I have a feeling I know what you're talking about, but let's double down on that.
I think you very much do, but let's double down on it. So I'll give you an example. Is probably the best way to do it, and I'll give you maybe a case study example. So I have a friend and client. He's doing very well now, but when he came to me, he was a professional speaker and trainer. But he thought that the marketplace wanted him to speak on leadership, and he thought that the marketplace would accept a leadership model that he learnt in university. And he also thought that he could apply his knowledge of politics, because he came out of the political field, to that business. Because he'd been successful in politics before, not as a politician, but in support. It went nowhere. Like in his first few years, he'd be lucky to be making any more than the guy giving you fines at the parking meter, right? Sort of that sort of level. So once we dug in and we found out who he was, we found out he's actually very flamboyant. But that wasn't showing in his brand at all. He actually has some really deep spiritual beliefs. That wasn't showing in his brand or his messaging. He actually didn't even like the models that he thought he should use. He'd actually come up with his own model and he thought it was pretty good. And he was passionate about that. And he really wasn't a good marketer at all, but he had a lot of connections who really loved him from the political stage. So all he had to do was go and do coffee meetings with them and tell them what he was doing now. Result of that, in 1 year, 55% increase in business. Now he's actually doing very, very well. You got to look at, and here's the thing that's part of the answer for you, Ali, is whenever we work with a new potential client, the first thing that we get them to do is we want to find out their essence. We want to find out what's inside them that just needs to express. So how do you know what that is? Well, one of the things is look at the books you're reading, look at the things you watch on YouTube, go back to your childhood and look at some of the things that you're excited about then. When Lundy, my wife, and I got together 11 years ago, and she was doing her due diligence on me. So one of the things she did was she came across a suitcase full of books from when I was under 10. And they were just sitting around in the storage unit, actually. And she opened this bookcase and she went through these books. And to me, they were books I had since before I was 10 years old, so I didn't really take any notice of them. You know, I remembered them with sentimental fondness. But she said, I cannot believe that you today are the sum total of these books. I said, what do you mean? She said, look at this. There's a whole lot of books on travel and the world and different cultures. She said, there's books on business in here. She said, there's so many books on music and musicians in here. You know, and the list went on, spiritual books and things like that. These are books kids have when they're under 10. They're like picture books and things like that. And I'm like, wow, this is crazy. This is exactly who I am today. So it's about finding that essence. So for instance, my essence is travel. I'm a global citizen. I don't feel that I live in one country or anything like that. I don't identify with being one nationality. So I was born in Australia, lived most of my life in New Zealand, and now live in South Africa and lived in America for a while. But out of all of them, I probably identify with being a New Zealander the most. And secondly is I'm just so passionate about music. I was a professional musician for 12 years. I could almost reach and touch my guitar amplifier, right? It's like literally about half a foot out of my reach. So that's part of my essence. Ancient wisdom is part of my essence. You know, our office has an ancient wisdom library in it. So that's there, and it's a serious library. So that's part of it. And I think the other part is business. So I'm a combination of those things. So what I do is I express those other things through business. And, you know, we've talked about a lot of them on you know, our podcast today as well. You've asked some questions that have triggered me talking about the Ashwa Indians and all of that sort of thing, which is all part of who I am. And I think what that does as an entrepreneur is that makes you more interesting, more intriguing, more different. It gives you points of difference in the marketplace. So Lundy, my wife, her essence is dancing, animals, and spiritual philosophy, right? So, you know, if I ever said to her, we're going to go somewhere and we're not going to visit the animals of that country, I think, you know, she'd be so depressed, she'd just go and do it anyway. You know, she has to meet new animals and she studies animals, and we're constantly showing each other video clips on, you know, social media of funny animals. My favorites are marmots these days, right? So go everybody and check out the marmots. They're very cute, cuddly animals. So expressing that in your business is a great part of the first part of learning to be more of who you are.
Very interesting. Thank you. Speaking of your wife, Landy, do you also work with her?
Every day, we're never more than 10 meters apart.
Wow.
It'd be very, very rare that we even go to the shops without each other.
Very
we're
interesting.
Like 2 pigs
How do you manage that? How do you manage that, Mike?
Well, she's got exceptional skills. She's highly strategic. She's a fantastic sounding board for me, and some of my harebrained schemes, and our clients probably love her more than they love me.
I mean more, how do you manage, working with someone that is also your love partner and your life partner, and you basically being together 24/7?
Well, we're recording this podcast. It's 5:43 p.m. here, where I am. So the minute we finish this, I'll be probably tidying up for the day and spending 10 minutes just making sure I've got a couple of things covered off that I want to have covered off, closing the laptop. We won't talk about business. We don't talk about business on weekends. We don't talk about business on holidays. And when I say that, if one of us has a great idea, we go, oh, gee, I've just had this great idea. But we don't sit on a weekend, or we're not going to sit there tonight and go, what's cash flow like this month? And, that last client that we onboarded, do you think we should do A or B for them? That all ceases when the day ceases. And I think we've done that very well. We never take business to the bedroom. We just, that's a rule. The rest of it is just how we are. But the rule for us is we just don't talk business in the bedroom. So the minute we're sort of, head to bed for the night, business can wait till the next day. And it's served us very, very well.
Mike, what do you think leaders need more of in this day and age that we are in, and with all the shift that we're going through in our world? What is your take on that?
Boldness. They need more boldness. I find most leaders today are pretty much pleasers. So they're, if they're a corporate leader, I've got to please the board of directors. I've got to please the shareholders. I've got to please my boss. So I'm just going to do this because I know that's what will make him or her feel good. If something's broke, tell them it's broke. Leaders as entrepreneurs, they don't want to say no to people. So you're not defined by what you say yes to. You're defined by what you say no to. Anybody can buy a product of ours from an online environment. That's fine. But the minute us or one of our people has to get involved, we have a due diligence process. We don't care how much money a client's got. If they haven't got manners and they're not a nice person and we don't like them, we're not going to work with them. So being bold enough to say, no, it's not a good fit. There's another podcast, I think Landy did it a couple of years ago. It's an American podcast where she talks about the day we knocked back a $1.3 million deal because the client, we didn't like them. So you've got to be boldness, and you've got to be bold in your community and in any committees that you're on or anything where you're doing joint ventures. If you think something's wrong, you've got to say it's wrong. Not to say you're wrong and you're an idiot. That doesn't work. But to say, listen, I don't agree with this, and I think that there's another way to do this, and we should do this way. And I'd like to put the case forward for doing that, Even if you get voted out and nobody agrees with you, at least you feel good that you've stated your case. Whereas I think that leadership is too mundane these days. Too many pleasers.
Am I hearing you, in other words, saying maybe there are also softies?
Say that one again.
Being softies, like the leaders these days being too soft.
Or they're too hard. So there's a lot of autocratic leadership as well. My way or the highway stuff.
Right.
I mean, in our organization, for instance, and I think it's cultural. So we don't say that nobody works for us. Everybody works with us. So if I'm introducing, say, our marketing guy, Chris, I don't say, Chris works for us, he does marketing. I say, Chris works with us, he does marketing. So it's about, because he's the marketing genius, right? I'm not. If I was, then why am I hiring him? So, it's about us putting people on that level. And then if we're if we're brainstorming or we've got something, we make it open for people to give suggestions. Sometimes people come up with so many better suggestions than us, or other times we go, look, thank you all for your suggestions. We really appreciate them, but we think we're going to run with this. Now, if you do that all the time, then you're just paying lip service to suggestions. But then if people don't have better suggestions than you, then you should hire better quality staff. So often the people around you, whether it be your staff, your clients, your shareholders, your suppliers, whatever, often they have a lot better ideas about where you should go next than you do. So running regular focus groups is a great idea for business to see what other people are thinking. We've had some amazing ideas come out of focus groups.
Love that. Mike, at what point should entrepreneurs come to you and ask for support, and how can you help them?
Okay, so firstly, it doesn't matter at what point they're in their journey at. Because if you're going to start your business tomorrow, then you should come to us. You may not be ready to work with myself personally, but you should come to us and say, hey, look, I'm starting a business, advertising company or an accountancy firm or a manufacturing company. It doesn't matter what you're doing. Because otherwise, if you don't get advice from great people who have been there and done that, then you're going to make a bunch of mistakes and cost yourself a lot of money that you didn't need to and waste a lot of time. So it's very important for people to get mentorship, coaching, and consultancy ASAP. We tend to get involved with businesses that are past that initial startup phase and are really looking to grow, scale, and have something that's really of value to the world. So if somebody came to me with an idea that said, how am I going to grow this business that doesn't help people in any way whatsoever, we wouldn't help them at all. But if somebody's got an idea, it doesn't matter what the idea is, and they say, I've got a digital marketing company and I want to launch this and I want to help people, reduce the cost of their digital marketing, we'd say, well, we'll help you build your business for sure. And the entry point to that, Ali, is to simply go to our website. You can have a look around there. The pages on our services are really good. We've recently updated them. But right on the homepage, there's an assessment that you can do, and it's going to give you a lot of help just to do the assessment. It's going to tell you where you're strong in your business or your ideas and where you need work in that. For some of you, that's going to give you enough information. For others of you, you're going to want more than that. And there's a question on our assessment that asks you if you want to reach out to you after the assessment. If you don't, we won't. And if you do, we will.
Awesome. We will definitely link you up in the show notes so people can find your website and reach out if they would like to. So, Mike, before we wrap up, if you could leave our audience with one last thing, what would it be?
I think the best message I can give the audience, all of you out there, is that life is not about how much money you can create. Life is about the experiences that you create and the memories that you create. Because when we leave this planet and graduate and go on to the next world, wherever that is, our Mercedes-Benz and our beach house isn't coming with us. What's coming with us are our experiences and our memories. So I'm all about making incredible memories because that's, I think, what life is about.
I love that. And absolutely agree to that. And I also believe that if I could add one last thing to this, is the impact that we make on this world before we leave. The impact is going to stay, and then we will remember and keep it in our hearts and memories. So yeah, absolutely. So Mike, it's been a pleasure having you on. Thank you for this amazing interview. And yeah, I would love to stay connected with you and see what we might be able to do together.
Absolutely, Ali. And I have to say, you've asked some fantastic questions. You're a wonderful host, but also energetically, you're an amazing individual. So I wish you every success for the balance of the year and going forward. And absolutely, I'd love to stay connected with you, and feel free to reach out to me, and let's have a chat about whatever.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for coming on.
Bye, everyone.